Today we are going to make an animated map flyover with animated drawn-on markings, perfect for zombie films, heist flicks, and road trip movies. Welcome to the Film Look. Make your video look like it was tailor-made for the silver screen with Rocket Stock's film grain overlay pack emulsion. Links in the description or head over to rocketstock.com. So first things first, we need a map. You can go online and find a map of the area you need, but there is another option which I actually prefer for a few reasons. Grab a map, unfold it, and place it on the ground next to a large window for even light. Get yourself a chair or a table and simply snap a photo of it from a height. So taking a photograph of the map rather than sourcing it gives us all those crinkle marks, folds, things like that. It's highly detailed, and because the photograph is a higher resolution than video, it means that we can scale and zoom and position and move around without losing any quality. The design I'll be making step by step today is a post-apocalypse, zombie-style map flyover, but the techniques we are using will translate to other designs too, such as a bank heist or a road trip movie. The first thing we will set up is the paintbrush. For the post-apocalypse design, we will go for a thick, imperfect, Sharpie sort of look. I found a flat, angled, low bristle count brush in Photoshop. I set the size to 10, yours will differ depending on the size of your image, the colour is set to black, and everything else is set to default. This will give us a dirty, grimy look when we draw it out. I'm using a cheap old graphics tablet to draw out the artwork. Mine is a Wacom Bamboo, and you can find one of these on eBay for less than £30 second hand. You can draw out your artwork with a mouse, but something like this gives you a lot more freedom. Let's keep our photo layer locked so we aren't destroying the image. We can create a new layer for each element of the scribbles so we can locate, edit, and animate those elements very easily later on. I see this map flyover being present during a theme tune of a zombie show, so we can add pieces of information in there that will give the audience some clues as to what the film or TV show is about. We can outline dangerous areas on the map, like patches of gang territory and spots of zombie-infested areas. We can outline them in black and then highlight them in red. You can get a highlighted brush effect by choosing your colour and then changing the blending mode from normal to multiply. This will give us a vibrant, translucent colour. We can add some story elements such as a few character grave locations, safe areas, and we can finish it off by adding some gates for past time and a smiley face when one of our zombie survivors is bored by the campfire. Now, considering this is for a zombie flick, it should look a little violent. I have some blood splatter images I sourced online which we can place on top. If we change the blending mode to multiply, it will embed the blood into the map a lot better and will give us this dried blood on paper look. Okay, so once we are complete with the artwork, we can go into After Effects and start animating. So the first thing we want to do is bring the Photoshop file of the map artwork into After Effects. We can do this by simply dragging the file into the After Effects window. When it imports, it will ask us what kind of import we want, and we want composition with editable layer styles. It will import in its original size with all of our artwork layers ready for animating. We will animate the artwork layers in this comp and then take it over into a 16:9 video composition for animating the camera movement and post effects. So to begin with, we can figure out where and what we want to animate first. We can start off in this top right corner at day 0 and work our way down and around to the gang zone at the bottom left. We can imagine that our characters began their journey up here at day 0 and have made their way south along the coastline. After our character Mike dies, they continue their journey inland, and this is maybe where we start our TV show. We will animate the written artwork first, so we can move the blood spatter images out the way and rearrange our layers so we have a cascading sequence resembling a reverse set of stairs. We can figure out what we want first by shutting off the layers and turning them on one by one, shifting the layers around until we have a basic timeline. To animate the artwork, we will use block dissolve. This gives us an irregular, time-lapse, erratic sort of feel, as if we are capturing someone writing these notes over time. So find your layer, hit E for effects, block dissolve, and keyframe the transition complete from 100, which is visible, to 0, which is invisible. It looks cool like this, but the parts are small, giving us a fuzzy look. We can adjust this using an expression. Hold Alt and click on the stopwatch beside block width to bring up the expression panel and type in this layer.width/4. We will also do the same with the block height, but change the expression from width to height. So it's this layer dot height /4. This expression will give us a larger area every time it fades in chunks instead of being horrible and fuzzy. We can also copy and paste the block dissolve keyframes onto all of our other hand-drawn layers. Let's see what we have so far. It's looking good, it's a little spaced out, so we can reduce the time between each layer animating in and make some final adjustments once we are in the camera animating stage. Now let's animate the blood. We aren't going to be using the block dissolve for these. Instead, we are going to have the blood splat onto the page. We can do this by using circular masks and animating the expansion. So find the blood splatter, grab the ellipse tool and draw out a circle. You can draw out a perfect circle by holding down Shift while dragging out a mask. By using a mask, we can actually take advantage of the mask expansion. It essentially animates a circle mask going bigger and smaller, which is perfect for what we want. Let's add a little bit of feather to remove hard edges, then keyframe the expansion. If we drag along, we can get rid of it. Then move along the timeline and keyframe the expansion until it is all revealed. And that's a cheap and cheerful way of making it splat onto the page. And we can do that with all of the other blood splatter images too. Now for a splatter image such as this one, it doesn't form into a circle very well. Because it has splattered onto the page and tailed off further, we can position the mask in the middle of the larger part and animate it that way, giving us the splat and then the tail can run after. After some final timing adjustments, we will have everything animated and ready for camera animation. We just need to add an outro. If we create a new adjustment layer, place it on top of our other layers, and add a CC burn film, we can create a burning effect to run with the whole map at a campfire in a zombie film aesthetic. So this is everything we need for our zombie map comp. We can create a new video composition and start animating the camera movement. So create a new composition. We will call this Flyover. We are working in 1080p, and of course you can work in 4K too. We'll make it about 20 seconds. All of our settings seem okay, so let's hit enter. Now we can drag our map composition into this new video comp. You'll notice that the map is much larger, which is ideal because we have all of this room to scale, position, and rotate without losing any quality of the image. So let's find out our starting point and we can go from there. Our starting point is going to be here at day 0. We can set our first position keyframe here. We will go about halfway along the timeline and move down the coast until we get to the bombed-ridden area. This will automatically set another keyframe because we are dragging and changing the position of the map, so we don't need to physically add another keyframe. We can move along the timeline to the end where we see the film burn and drag our map all the way until we hit the gang area at the bottom left. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Alright, you can see straight away that our second keyframe is really not halfway. Let's move that now. By highlighting our keyframes and hitting F9, we can set them to easy ease keyframes, which will give us a smoother, more gradual motion. What we can also do is look at our anchor points. If we select our second keyframe and zoom in, we can see these points just off of our position rail. We can adjust these in a way so we get an even smoother, swoopy motion. If we position them to give a gradual outward curve, it will help the motion of the camera moving along the map. Okay, let's see what we have. Alright, we are almost there, so we can now add a little rotation and some scaling. If you hold Shift and hit R, it will bring up rotation. We can add a keyframe at the beginning, set that to -4, and at the end we can set that to +4. This gives us some tilt in the movement of the map. We can do the same with the scale, so hold down Shift and hit S to bring up the scale keyframe. Set a keyframe at the start, we can leave that at 100% and go all the way to the end and scale out the map a little bit so we can see more of the final image. We might have to move our position so it fits in again, but that's fine. We also need to fix our middle keyframe because it is slowing down just a bit too much here. If you hold Control and click on the keyframe, it will reset the Easy Ease keyframe. Alright, that's looking better already. If you hold down Control and click on the diamond shape keyframe, which is our default, it will give us a circular keyframe, which is essentially another type of Easy Ease. It just works better as it's between two other keyframes and isn't on the tail or the head. So you might notice our artwork animation isn't in the right place with the camera movement. We can fix that now. So if we find a point where it isn't animating in time, like here, rest in peace Mike, we can find the time on our map comp and adjust the layer in the timeline to fit in the right place. And we can do that with the other bits too, such as this part with the bombed bit. We want it to fill in later as the camera swoops around, so we can adjust that quite easily. And we can even do this with the gang area fill as well, by moving it further along. Alright, let's see how it's all working. I think that looks pretty good. This is all we need to do with the camera movement. So now that we're finished with the camera movement, we can do some color grading and add some extra elements to give it more of a post-apocalypse, zombie, survivor, campfire sort of feel. If we start off by adding a new adjustment layer and plonking that over our existing layer, search for Lumetri color and place that on the adjustment layer. This is going to be our color grade. First of all, we can add a darkened vignette like so. Then if we head into the color wheel, we can start to dye our map a dark red sort of color. Our midtones, let's bring them into the red and bring the exposure down to darken the map. The shadows, we can make them an orange color and darken them right down. Our highlights can be a little bit orange and bring them up just a little bit too. And in fact, we can darken the vignette even further. The second thing we can do is add a particle video file in. You can get this from Video Copilot for free. Just search for Particles Video Copilot. I'll pop a link down below as well. It's essentially some flour which is falling from the top of the frame. This is only 720p, so we can right click, transform and set fit to comp. I'm sure you can find or shoot 4K particles elsewhere, but I already had this on my computer, so I'm just going to use what we have. If we hit play, you'll notice the particles fall rather than rise. Embers seem to rise from the heat of the fire, so we can hit R and rotate the video 180 degrees to give us rising particles rather than falling particles. The next thing we can do is add a curves adjustment. When we change the blending mode, we want to get rid of the grey background and be left with very white particles and a very black background. What we can give it is called the heavy S-curve treatment. This will add a lot of contrast, making the greys whiter and the blacks blacker. The next thing we can do is add a glow. The particles look great, but embers do glow a lot more than this, so we can enhance them by adding this glow plugin. This is essentially going to give us a bloom effect. I'll set the radius to 49 and the intensity to 4. No, I will set it to 2. Before we move on from our particles, we need to turn them orange. Embers are not white. We can do this by adding a tint, and we can change the white to a bright orange. Now it's looking a lot more like embers. We can change the blending mode from normal to soft light, so we can see through the black pixels and composite it onto our map. Looking good! We can simply duplicate the layers and place them side by side to continue the embers along the timeline. To finish off the comp, we can find our embers and hit T to bring up opacity and keyframe it to 0. That will give us a simple fade out onto whatever footage we might have next. That might be the start of the film or the TV show. Now the last thing we want to work on before we are finished is give the whole composition a bit more grit. We can achieve this by adding some film grain. Our sponsors, Rocket Stock, have sent us over some awesome 4K film grain overlays for us to use from their emulsion pack. If you want to check it out, I've put a link in the description below. I'm going to be using the 30mm coarse grain element. Let's put that on there. It's all filmed using cinema cameras to give us some super realistic looking film grain, and it will help us achieve that film look. We can simply change the blending mode from normal to soft light and it will work its magic. Alright, let's have a look at the final image, see what we've got. And that's how you make an animated map flyover with some blood splats and sketchy handwriting. So thanks for tuning into the Film Look this week, guys and girls. Subscribe if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up if you want to see more videos like this. I've been Richard Scott, and remember, achieve it one shot at a time.